Hey guys, it's Jason, and I'm trying it from this way round today because the lighting is really not playing ball today. So, as promised, I'm going to do something more topical this week, and it's going to be about the gym, or any other kind of physical activity that involves going to somewhere on a regular basis. Oh, the gym. I currently go to a gym that is, fortunately, at my workplace. Because it's so close to my work, it actually really helps in some of these things that we as trans people have to think about every day and sort of overcome. Whereas at my other gym, where I used to go, which I'm unfortunately still paying for, it is somewhere where it involves a lot more effort, and it's a lot busier, and the people there are not as good either. So let me break it down a little bit. So obviously, in a gym, you have to get changed, that's one thing. There is also things like, you exert yourself, so you get sweaty. So that may potentially mean that you have to then dry yourself off or even take a shower. Now already, I'm saying the word shower, and of course, with trans people, showering is very difficult. Also, as a whole, gyms are potentially vulnerable places for trans people, just because this whole thing of the fact that you have to get changed in a space, you have to wear clothes that might, show off more than you actually want to, whereas, just so you know, for example, at rest, I'm wearing very loose clothes, however I'm not wearing a binder, but you probably can't really tell because this thing is so friggin' massive. Whereas, when you're wearing sports clothes or like gym clothes, they tend to be quite sort of clingy or even quite revealing. Like, for example, you get blokes who wear those sort of tank tops, and I'd love to wear a tank top, but, unfortunately, I can't. So, in order to sort of make this not as convoluted as possible, what I'm going to do, I'm going to sort of talk about each of the experiences, but also like things that I personally have to go through, sort of as I go through the sort of gym session thing, if that makes sense. I'm not making any sense at all here, am I? Okay, so the first thing is obviously like choosing a gym. So you have to think about, first of all, where it is. So first thing, which fortunately has not been a problem for me, but it may be for some people, are there going to be people there who know you? And if so, do they know you as your actual gender that you express or as your assigned gender at birth? There is that. Secondly, there is also a case of how far away it is. And also what facilities they have. That's a huge thing. So, say for example, like me, you don't drive, so you either have to use public transport or you walk. That, being a trans person, is a problem because, you obviously want to go and get changed at a gym, but a lot of the time, changing in a changing room at a gym for a trans person is very unsafe. Or even if it's safe, it still is incredibly dysphoric and a bit terrifying because the fact you have to strip off, and it involves, potentially revealing things, which may cause you to be clocked by everybody else in the room. Say if it was open. One rule I have is that I just don't get changed in a gym, so I have to find other means of getting changed. For my first gym, this was a big problem. There were no sort of loos that were outside of the locker rooms, except for like one disabled loo, which was right by the ticket booth, and I believe you needed a key for that. And even if you didn't need a key, it would be really obvious that you were going in, and I felt really sort of bad about doing that. So if you had to get changed at all, you'd have to go like through the locker room and so on. There were also, as far as I could tell, no cubicles in that changing room. Again, some change rooms do have cubicles, others do not. So that's something that you've got to think about. So that's one reason why I don't do that. So yeah, so you've got to think, okay, can I get changed somewhere else? Is there a toilet nearby that I can use, or would I have to get changed at home? That's pretty much the only two options that you've got. Now for the first gym, because there were no other means of getting changed, either at the place or nearby, I pretty much got changed at home, and then I had to walk half an hour before I even got to the bloody gym, which was really annoying. It was freezing cold, I was in my shorts, and it just wasn't cool at all by any means, and it was annoying to think that I had to do that. However, the fact that my new gym, or my newer gym, is right next to my work means I can just nip into one of the loos, which fortunately I feel safe doing. Again, that's not something that every trans person feels. And I can just get changed in the loo. It's still a bit of a problem, getting changed in a toilet because of the confined space and yada yada yada. I'm not going to go into discussing details. But it's still better than, what I would have possibly had to do at some other point. Also, it means that I don't have to worry about work clothes and things like that, which is another thing that you have to think about. Then, of course, when you go to the gym, you have to think about, okay, what kind of people go to this gym, and how many of these people? Are they going to be potential people who would question you, or, would clock you and maybe misgender you, or, would your gym even allow you to join as your preferred name and pronouns and so on? All these things are taken into account. Now, I did open up a little bit to my previous sort of gym person at my older gym about the fact that I was trans, and I said, well, I want to be able to use the men's locker room and this, that and the other, and I wanted to make you aware in case. And he said, oh yeah, it's absolutely fine. Any problems at all, come to me and whatever, and it's okay, sure, whatever, use whatever you want. Which is all well and good. But I got clocked by a lot of people. It didn't help that this gym was right next to a massive evangelical church. So these people, and I'm not trying to sort of bash an entire religion or anything, but I do get wary of people who are quite heavily religious, in that they might look at me and, deem me as, a woman, basically, and therefore what the fuck am I doing in the men's locker room, which is kind of terrifying, and that lowers your confidence and stuff like that. Another thing in particular is that, going back to sort of what you wear as well, that's also another thing. Like, you can get sort of, better clothes, so they're sort of baggier, but then, are you going to get too hot? Is it going to be, tricky, to actually do stuff in, this, that and the other, because you want to be as comfortable as possible, don't you? For me, I do wear shorts, as I said, although these particular shorts unfortunately do show off my hips a lot, which can be a bit tricky. And even though I've got really hairy legs, I'm still clocked as female, or certainly I was in there. With my new gym, I don't get clocked per se, but I still don't think that I pass particularly well, but hey ho, that is a difference. Now again, let me reiterate that I can really only speak for trans men, because I'm not a trans woman or a non-binary person. However, what I do know as well, for trans men in particular, it is really difficult going to the gym, because you got to worry about, if you're someone who binds, and also for non-binary people who bind, that can be a massive, massive problem. Some people choose not to bind at all, which is great. I am one of these people who does not have a tiny chest, however my chest is not really big. So the thing is, I can hide it, as I am doing with like really loose clothes, which is all well and good. I have to take my binder off sometimes for safety reasons. But at the gym, it would be really, really obvious, and because I'm moving around, then, things would move around as well, which would also make things extremely uncomfortable. So I have to bind. I do it safely though, government, but still, it does affect your breathing, and the worst thing is, sort of going back to the shower bit again, it's like, you want to be able to have a shower afterwards, but you can't because it's not safe. So when you get changed, it's so horrible taking off a really sweaty binder, and then you have to kind of put another one back on again. It's the most horrible thing, and it's incredibly difficult to just even do that. It is very, very difficult, and of course, in some other way as well, I'm aware that some trans women, choose to tuck when they're at the gym because, if they're running, and so on, it's the same sort of thing. And that can also be problematic. I don't know what it's like though, of course, but I know that can also be a problem. You also get areas of a gym specifically which can be intimidating, depending on the type of people there. So for me, the most intimidating area, and it's always going to be honest, is the sort of weightlifting area, because you get a lot of these manly men and they're going to weightlift massive. So either I feel intimidated by them because, they're cis and, they're blatantly lifting heavier than me, even though I want to lift as heavy as they are. So there's this sort of double thing of, I'm comparing myself to them by thinking like, I want to be as strong as them and whatever. But at the same time, there's also like, I'm just as manly as they are, but they will not see me that way, or they potentially won't see me that way because they don't pass. So therefore this is and it's really horrible. I mean, it depends on you as a person, like what kind of activity you prefer. You may prefer like things like rowing machines, or even kickboxing. I do sometimes do the punch bag, which is good when there's not like a meditation class going on right next to it, which is a little bit weird. And then there's even small things, which is stuff like, well, what do you do with your stuff? Are you able to go into a locker room? Is it safe? Or do you have to keep your stuff somewhere else where it could potentially be nicked? This is a big problem. Again, back when I did my old gym, even just going inside the door to the locker room was difficult. There would be so many people either doing, a double take checking to see what it said at the top of the door, like whether it was men or women, and then they would sort of look, people would literally almost like look round me, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And then they would start saying, oh, this is the men's and whatever, and even though the men's locker and the women's locker were practically the fucking same design through and through, like seriously, but yeah, the fact that all the men had to go through the locker room in order to get to the changing room, so there was a lot of people coming through. I decided with my new gym just not to even bother going up the stairs to the changing rooms and the locker room. So, fortunately, there are some lockers downstairs, but I don't even need to use them because it just so happens that the gym is pretty small, and there's like a little table that's conveniently by the door. I just put my stuff under there, and then boom, I just go over and do my thing and then take it back with me when I go back to get changed, which again is really convenient. And it just seems so stupid that I have to think of these things just to go to the gym. And it's the same with lots of other people who have to go to the gym. It really depends on where you are, it depends on who you are, it depends on whether you're passing or not. So many things. Even if all that was not there, there's still the potential of feeling dysphoric, because just like swimming, doing sports is or can be very dysphoric. There are mirrors everywhere, of course, because you want to be able to make sure you've got good form if you're weightlifting or something. And also, I don't know, people might like to look at themselves because they're vain and narcissist as fuck. But there are times, like even last week, when I felt really dysphoric, and it kind of been building up through the day, and then the gym was kind of like the cutting off point where everything felt really out of proportion. I felt like an absolute freak, and what was even worse was I wear a packer, by the way, but my packer felt like it was really bulging out, and by that point my mind had kind of already convinced myself, oh well, you're not looking male at all today, you look really female, and you've got this massive cock sticking out and all this stuff. I felt absolutely awful. Fortunately, Stoner went, there was no main issue, but also it's very, very quiet. So I definitely think that, that can have an effect as well. So, say you are trans or non-binary and you need help with the gym. There are a lot of things to think about. So what I would do is, if there's a few gyms in your area you can try, I would definitely go to each of them, get an idea of, say, locations, how far away they are from your home, what facilities they have, and like right down to things like, do they have like a spare toilet you can use that's not in the changing rooms, or the changing rooms safe to use, or are they, you know, cubicled, because some people feel safe doing that. Again, depends on how much you pass. Is it a big gym? Is it a small gym? I personally find smaller gyms are safer because you can sort of keep an eye on your stuff, and there's going to be less people there. You know, or is it going to be a massive gym with like several floors and like a bazillion people there and stuff like that? You could also think as well about what time you go to the gym. So a lot of people say anyway, just because it's cheaper, you know, go off peak. So it's not as busy and so on. And I'm sure there are some of you who are crazy and like to get up at like 5 in the morning and go to the gym. You know, you can always do things like that. Although I would never do such a thing. But I definitely feel like, say my shifts are a bit later in the day or a bit earlier in the day, because there's less people in the gym, I definitely feel safer because there's not as many almost prying eyes, or at least my mind is telling me that there are prying eyes, you know, sort of judging me and all that stuff. Other things I think that really help are ways to distract yourself, because certainly for me, and it's one thing that I've struggled with when trying to keep fit, is my mind is so active all the time, and it's because I'm very creative and very intelligent, but also I have quite big anxiety that I've had for a long time. So my mind is just on overdrive all the time. So if I'm just staring at a wall, then I'm going to think about stuff that I don't want to think about. So I always take music with me in order to try and zone out as much as I can. I was listening to some really nice atmospheric black metal today, and that really sort of hit the spot. Also, if there's like, say, a TV, then by all means use it. Again, some people like that. I don't personally like watching the telly because I can't get into a decent rhythm, but some people love it. Some people just like zoning out into, I don't know, reality TV or MasterChef or something. You know, or put on YouTube even, you know, if you find, you know, the TV channels to be boring, put on, you know, YouTube if you can, if there's Wi-Fi and stuff like that. There's usually some kind of Wi-Fi at gyms, so definitely do that. And then finally, for trans men, I would definitely say either don't wear a binder at all if you can get away with it, or if you feel like you can deal with that, or at least wear a looser binder. It makes such a difference, and it's very much a safety thing. When you bind, you can't breathe as much as you would normally. And also as a singer, I feel this hugely. Like, I can breathe really deeply. But even from wearing a binder a lot for about 8 months, I can now feel physically that I can't breathe as well as I used to, which is kind of horrible. But when you're wearing your binder as well, you get used to breathing smaller breaths. So really, honestly, be careful. As I'm speaking now almost like a father figure, but for fuck's sake, be careful, because the worst thing that could happen is that you bind too tightly, you don't breathe enough, and then you get dizzy, and then you injure yourself. That would be absolutely awful. And also, of course, with clothes, you know, try and get clothes that help you to disguise the bits you don't want people to see, either curves or make you more curvy or that kind of thing. And then go for it. Give it a go. I do understand, however, that sometimes it is too overwhelming to go to the gym, but I'm certainly trying to sort of plough on with it, and it is helping, but just accept as well. On top of, you know, your own fitness goals of, you know, there's going to be good and bad days with that, there's also going to be good and bad days with your dysphoria. So just bear that in mind. It's not your fault, it's just something that we as trans people have to deal with, which cis people do not understand. But we all have to deal with this. So anyway, this is some of my musings on going to the gym. I hope I didn't leave on too much of a sad note, because, you know, going to the gym is fun, and you know, actually doing the gym, in my opinion, really does sort of release endorphins, which does help, even if you are dysphoric. Yeah, so feel free to like the video, subscribe, talk about your experiences. You know, as a trans person, I'd potentially as well love to hear, I'd also particularly like to hear experiences from trans women about this as well, and you know, what you do to combat dysphoria and things like that, and what you have to do, because it really interests me on different people's experiences on this. And of course, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.